Hey there. So, one of the questions that most commonly comes up when we talk about habits is how long does it take to create one? We all would like our habits to be perfect, and if we're going to work on them, we'd like results as soon as possible. Um, Boy, really tricky question, as it turns out. So, can't say that, most of what you need to know about habits is probably not written in a book. You've probably already experienced it in your life, but here's what's bounced around out there a lot. You'll hear it takes 21 days to make a habit. Is that true? Well, if you just Google it, you'll quickly find out, no, that's not true. It's an interesting story, though, and I think it's a story of some ounces of truth and some hope, and then it's been blown up and amplified in ways it was never intended. And so that story began back in the 50s with a plastic surgeon named Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And he observed that with his patients, after plastic surgery, it took a few weeks before they would start to recognize let's say, their facial reconstruction as themselves. So you look in the mirror and you see someone else's nose, and then after a period of time, it actually becomes your nose. And the same was true with amputees. He found that they would have phantom sensations in limbs that were no longer there, but only for a period of time. And then those feelings would start to go away. And so what he said was his observation was it took a minimum of 21 days for the brain to begin to rewire. And the promise and the hope was that the brain can rewire. I mean, that's fantastic news. Here's the problem. People took that minimum of 21 days and they turned it into a rule, first of all, that the brain rewires in 21 days. And then they applied it to something that he actually never studied, which was habits. So unfortunately, it got kicked around a lot over the last 50 years. And then in 2009, a new study was done. And I first learned about this through Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, who wrote the book, The One Thing. And those guys created Keller Williams. They were still are unbelievably successful. And they said they read everything there was on habit research and how do you change behavior. Because what they ultimately learned was you've got to get really good, really consistent at doing a very, very small number of things. Ultimately, he found pick one thing that you're really going to focus on. That will move the needle when you get that focused. And he suggested actually that the 21-day was flawed, that new research showed it was 66 days. Well, awesome. That explains a lot, right? And so now you're seeing 66 days bantered around in a lot of places. Okay, unfortunately, still flawed. So that research was done over in London. The researcher, Pippa Lally, she really wasn't studying how many days until you make a habit. She was studying a concept called automaticity. And this is a little technical, but it's actually really relevant and really important if you want to understand the answer to the question. So up to that point, up to 2009, research had shown that behaviors that are done consistently get easier. Again, another very promising thing. So take something hard, like a new behavior. If I do it consistently, for example, if I do it every day for a certain number of days in a row at the same time in the same way, it will get easier for me to do it. Now, it makes sense, and it's true. However, that was as far as the current research had gone. So it suggested that automaticity just got easier forever. And Pippa knew, okay, that's actually not possible. At some point, things get as easy as they're going to get. It can't continually get easier. Once it's like a subconscious, automatic thing, how does it get easier? It's as easy as it's going to get. So what she set out to do was research that showed that automaticity is a curve, and that things get easier as you continue to do them consistently, but they get a little bit less easy each time. And so the curve kind of flattens out. And so what you get is this terminal automaticity level that in layman's terms would say things get easier until they get as easy as they're going to get. Here is the problem. When that curve got within 95% of being flat, technically, those of you mathematicians out there, you know it's approaching the asymptote, they declared victory. Once it got within 95%, which means it's pretty much flattened out, it's gotten about as easy as it's going to get, they said, okay, let's let's declare it a habit. And how long does it take to get within 95% of the asymptote of the terminal automaticity? Well, it turns out, on average, 66 days. Well, actually, it's a huge range. What she found is it ranged between 18 days and 254 days. Now, the study only went on for 12 weeks, so all of the rest of the weeks, from week 12 to day 254, were extrapolations. So it's theory, it's not actually practiced. And then there's this major oversight, and that is the terminal automaticity of some behaviors is low. Let that sink in for just a second. Some behaviors never get easy, okay? They get easier, so they might go from, oh my gosh, do I hate doing this? I hate having hard conversations, reprimanding people, making sales calls, doing push-ups, running, whatever the thing is that you're trying to do more consistently. I can't stand doing it, or it's hard, or it's embarrassing, or it's weird. And it gets easier. But some behaviors don't ever actually get easy. They plateau low. And so for that reason, I hate to tell you this, but some behaviors may never become habits, which is one of the reasons, even though I talk a lot about habits, I really tell you, if you want to get something to stick, make it a routine. Make it a ritual. We'll talk a lot more about that in another video. All right? Hope that's helpful. Have a great day.